This video of the attack on the Capitol captures the horrifying moment a man in a white hat and backpack pulls an officer to the ground, the mob dragging him by the legs, pummeling him with the poles of their American flags. Another video showing a rioter hurling a fire extinguisher at a line of police, striking several in the head.
I have talked to officers who have done 2 tours in Iraq and said that this was scarier to them than their time in combat.
With every new detail and image that emerges, the calls for accountability get louder. Democrats now giving Vice President Mike Pence an ultimatum. Either invoke the 25th Amendment by tomorrow, or they will go forward with impeachment proceedings against President Trump for the second time. The article of impeachment introduced today is just a single charge: incitement of insurrection.
If President Trump is impeached again, he will be the only president in history to have ever been impeached twice.
With more than 210 House Democrats signed on, a vote on impeachment could happen as soon as Wednesday.
I think impeachment will move fairly quickly through the House. All of the members were witnesses to what happened.
Even if the president is impeached quickly, the Biden administration could be underway before the Senate takes it up. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying the Senate will not reconvene until January 19th.
I am told there are a significant number of Republican senators who are considering that they would vote to convict Donald Trump if he was impeached, perhaps even enough to get to the 2/3 of the Senate threshold that you would need to convict him.
Republican Senator Pat Toomey, possibly one of them, telling Fox News this.
I do think the president committed impeachable offenses.
If he is convicted, he would lose all his post-presidency privileges, his pension, the use of staff. There is also an opportunity after he is impeached and convicted to have a vote that doesn't allow him ever to hold a federal office again.
Nearly 2/3 of Americans feel President Trump is responsible for last week's violent insurrection, and a majority of Americans believe Trump should be removed from office before President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in next week.
One argument is we shouldn't impeach because it will cause further division in a volatilely divided country right now. What do you make of that argument?
Matters can't get worse. We just had a potential coup attempt. We just had domestic terrorists try to stop the election process. It can't get any worse.
Congressman Tim Ryan is leading an investigation into any potential role Capitol Police may have had in the insurrection, announcing that at least 2 officers have been suspended over their conduct. One filmed taking a selfie, another seen putting on a MAGA hat and showing rioters around.
You tweeted out that you know of at least 10 to 15 investigations of Capitol Hill officers, and that you're aggressively looking into this idea that if there was any facilitation or help from within the Capitol Hill Police.
If there are people that were working there on the 6th and were doing something that was nefarious, we want to make sure that that's taken care of so that we ensure safety for the inauguration.
Alleged domestic terrorists were also arrested over the weekend, including the 2 men photographed inside the Senate chamber carrying restraints. Larry Brock, a Texas-based Air Force Academy graduate and combat veteran, was turned in by his ex-wife, according to an FBI affidavit. And bartender Eric Munchell from Tennessee, who law enforcement officials say is seen here holding several zip-tie handcuffs. The FBI looking into whether the mob had plans to kidnap or kill lawmakers.
They came with baseball bats. They came with metal pipes. There's information that they were coordinating by using walkie-talkies and radios. So law enforcement officials have to find out if there were cells, small groups of people working in coordination to set in motion the attack.
Death threats against Vice President Mike Pence were heard outside the Capitol. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi telling 60 Minutes she and her office were targets.
The staff went under the table, barricaded the door, turned out the lights, and were silent in the dark.
Under the table?
Under the table for 2.5 hours.
Wow. Other lawmakers also fearing for their lives.
They were coming for vengeance. They were coming for blood. God only knows what they would have done had they succeeded.
A senior official telling ABC News that among last week's crowd were many former military members and current law enforcement officers. The New York Fire Department confirming that at least 2 active or retired officers were seen on Capitol ground. Eugene Goodman, the black Capitol police officer filmed holding back a mob alone, praised for his quick thinking after deliberately leading them up the steps away from an open Senate chamber door, according to the Washington Post. The man who police say led that mob, now in custody. There are ongoing concerns about the potential for more attacks in the coming days and weeks. According to an internal FBI memo obtained by ABC News, armed protests are being planned for all 50 state capitals and Washington, D.C. The FBI also receiving information about a group calling for storming government courthouses and administrative buildings on January 20th as well, if President Trump is removed from office. Of particular concern, President-elect Biden's inauguration next week.
You're going to see checkpoints, you're going to see barricades, you're going to see magnetometer screening through all aspects and points of the city.
As the country braces for the possibility of more violence, Donald Trump remains largely isolated in the White House.
You've started to see a number of cabinet members leave. I mean, the latest, Chad Wolf, the acting Secretary of Homeland Security. And beyond that, you've had a number of officials and advisors of the president, cabinet officials, who have simply packed up their offices and quietly left because they're worried about their own personal safety.
Trump meeting today with the vice president for the first time since the attack.
What are you hearing from your constituents?
Disbelief. You know, I come from an area that swung for Trump twice, and I think he alienated a lot of his supporters. He's going to go down as one of the worst presidents ever and an imminent threat to our country.
Now, for more on the impeachment crisis, earlier this evening I spoke to Republican member of Congress from South Carolina, Nancy Mace. Congresswoman Mace, so glad to hear that you're safe and well. As a freshman member of Congress, you've been a big supporter of the president throughout, but that changed last week, I'm told, as you were barricaded in your office. First and foremost, do you think President Trump was responsible for instigating the riots?
I do, and I think it's more than just the president, though. There are members of my own party who also contributed to the violence that day. Rhetoric has real consequences, and in the days leading up to the vote to certify the Electoral College last week, I know that my life was threatened online on social media. I was accosted Tuesday night on the eve of those violent riots. And so words have consequences, especially when people take them literally. And it was an enormously sad day for our nation. As a mom, I'm sad for my kids. And that's why I've been such a vocal critic of the president and what happened on Wednesday, is that we've got to acknowledge that we have a problem. We need to take responsibility for it in order to earn the trust back of the American people. And that's not going to happen overnight.
Well, you're clearly not hesitating from blaming the president, and yet you're still against impeachment. In your view, what should the president be told to be held accountable?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of options on the table. The problem that I see with impeachment right now is that it is divisive. It will continue to divide our country. The other thing is that once the articles of impeachment are passed out of the House, and I have no doubt that they will be, but they don't get to the U.S. Senate until January 19th on the eve of Joe Biden swearing in. And so my question is, do all of us in this country, do we want to endure 100 more days of Donald Trump, or do we want to look forward to the future and work with President-elect Joe Biden? Our country needs to be rebuilt. Our party needs to be rebuilt. We have a lot of work to do in the future.
Clearly thoughtful answers. Let me get a yes or no from you. On Wednesday, will you vote?
Those are the worst. I am not going to vote to impeach at this time. I'm working on explaining why I'm going to do that for voters from a constitutional perspective, but also I don't want to pour gasoline on the fire. Censure would be an option. It would be an option if Speaker Pelosi would bring it up, but my understanding is Democrats will not bring up the idea of censure, which would be a similar motion. It would prevent him from running for office again, but they want impeachment or nothing.
Understood. A lot more than one words, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Congresswoman. Yep. Be well.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.